So you were working in economic development. How did Global Bluenosers come out of that?
Why, like those very tangible things of what you miss about home. You just miss the feeling of home. Something I saw when I was out there, I was surrounded by people from other places in Alberta. And there was the Nova Scotians and the Newfoundlanders were the two that you missed home. We are people built on having to go against the odds. You know, it's kind of built on us against the world. Everyone always expects us to not do it, but we do it.
I'm Todd Burgess. I'm the Executive Director of Forest Nova Scotia, and you are listening to Forestry Uncut. Today's guest is someone who was raised in forestry and has grown to take Nova Scotia far beyond its borders. Sean Meister is the President and CEO of Global Bluenosers, a federal not-for-profit that connects globally minded Nova Scotians and alumni from around the world. It's more than just a network. It's a movement of people who carry Nova Scotia in their hearts and want to help it grow no matter where they live. Sean's story starts in rural Lunenburg County, where he grew up in his family's forestry and farming business, raising cattle, hauling chainsaws through the woods, and harvesting Christmas trees for export. That early connection to the land shaped how he thinks about sustainability, community, and long-term growth. Sean is emblematic of the foundation forestry can give those willing to work hard, show passion, and have a big long-term vision. So welcome, Sean, to our podcast. Dear listeners, Sean has a history in Nova Scotia, rooted in forestry and farming. Can you tell me a little bit about your history, Sean, here in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, I mean, I hope you've got enough time to cover it all. I'd talk about this all day long. First of all, thanks for having me, and I love that you're doing the show. As somebody that grew up in forestry, it's awesome to see stories coming out of forestry in sort of a new way. But yes, no, I grew up on a multi-generational family farm in New Ross, and I grew up pretty much my entire life with a chainsaw in my hand. So grew up, family business was forestry and farming and Christmas trees out there. So we, Meister Field and Forest in New Ross, Nova Scotia.
Okay, and it's still running?
It's still in existence. It's evolved, as you know, we can probably get into. You know, small family farms and family operations have evolved from the time of when I was a kid to what they are now. The world has changed, the communities have changed, and sort of the market has changed. So people have to change with it. My dad has since passed away, and my brother's taken over a lot of the stuff that's going on, and he's shifted focus. But you know, for us, we had the same. We were a private woodlot owner, and so we cut on our land growing up. So I grew up with about 1,700 acres.
That's a big. That's not a small woodlot.
It's not a small woodlot. It's we had added on over the years, and you had the home lots, which had a lot of field on it because we had cattle. But our bread and butter was forestry. So I grew up. It was my dad every day waking up and getting in the truck and driving back the woods road with chainsaw and his gas jug and oil, and jump in the skidder and get to work. So
did you have any formal training in forestry, or that was all just passed down from your father and your family?
That was passed down. Like I always laugh about it. My grandfather, when he was younger, he was using a crosscut saw and an axe. He was one of the first people using a chainsaw. That got handed down to my father, and as early as it was safe for us to go in the woods, we were strapping on the chaps and a hard hat. And my dad was teaching us how to use a chainsaw. We did some courses and stuff that were offered in the community. I remember we did one in Bridgewater, some safety stuff, which was really good. It was a free program that was put out for foresters. But no, as soon as I could, I was out in the woods cutting with my dad. And it's how I spent so much of my time.
So what took you away from that? That sounds like a fun experience. Did you not see the future in forestry, or what took you away from your family woodlot?
I would say I was probably a victim of circumstances and timing. So when I hit the age to go off to university, so I wanted to go off to university, and I was somebody that decided to go into political science, which was not really the other side of it. And this, small town Nova Scotia is you're dealing a lot with natural resources, you're dealing a lot with politics. And so my grandfather was huge into politics, and he injected that into my blood early. So I wanted to go off to Acadia and do political science. For the longest time, I thought that maybe I would come back to the farm. But right around the time that I was going off to university is when we had some struggles in the industry. Our major buyer was Bowater. And so operations there were starting to wind down, and my dad was really trying to figure out what that meant for him. And he was starting to get older, so he's like, okay, well, maybe this aligns with where I'm going to go. Where I would have taken it as a private woodlot owner, I really didn't have that figured out. So he kind of advised me to say, go off and do your career and come back to the farm if it feels right, and figure it out what it's going to look like then.
That sounds very familiar with many families, including my own.
Yeah, I mean, you could just probably dub over anyone's voice into that story and it would sound the same. It happened to a lot of folks.
So to back up a little bit, this is for my own personal curiosity.
Yeah.
So your brother still owns and manages this farm.
Yep.
How much of that is woodlot?
So we're down to about 700 acres now. So my grandfather and father sold off as we did some heavier cuts over the years. They decided to sell off some land. So we're down to about 700. I'd say you've got how much was that? Maybe like 20, 30 acres of that is field. It's mainly woods. Okay. It's mainly forest, and it's that the standard mixture is fir, spruce. We got a few stands of hardwood here and there, but it's majority woodlot. It's kind of funny though, is my brother likes the farming side. I like the forestry side, and so he's put a lot more focus on what the experience of people coming out and seeing the farm is, but we still got a lot of woodlot to manage. That's a lot of acres.
So you moved away.
Yep.
You moved to Alberta for 10 years.
Yeah, Alberta and Ontario.
Okay, so you went away. What did you do when you were out there?
About as far from forestry as you could get. So I went into public relations. And so I worked at universities and colleges across the country for those 10 years doing marketing, communications, and things like that. So that's what I did for those 10 years away. I spent majority of that time trying to figure out how to get home. And so after we had some changes in our family, my daughter was born, decided to make the move home in 2017, and actually started working in economic development for the province of Nova Scotia at that time when I came home.
Okay. So what were you, when you were out west, what were you missing? Everything. What was the draw?
So I mean, this is what's been driving my life so much over the last little while. It's really hard to say why, like those very tangible things of what you miss about home. You just miss the feeling of home. It's something I saw when I was out there. I was surrounded by people from other places in Alberta, and there was the Nova Scotians and the Newfoundlanders were the two that you missed home. And home was one of those things that was all the feelings, all the emotions, all the sense of community and connection and identity and place just put into that word of home. And I lived in a house in Nova Scotia, but in Alberta, but home was Nova Scotia. And so you miss home.
So you were away and you moved back, started working with the province to start building this organization called Global Bluenosers.
Yeah.
So how did that take you? So you were working in economic development. How did Global Bluenosers come out of that? Or why did it come out of that?
Well, with the role I was doing in economic development, my lens was on international. So I focused on supporting export development, investment attraction into the province. So my life was looking outside. It was funny. I came home to look outside the province.
Okay.
And just by happenstance, by doing that, I started to run into Nova Scotians in everything I was doing. Because if I'm looking to support a company in a market, or if I'm trying to find meetings for government officials in a market, I would start doing research and I'd start finding that there were all these Nova Scotians in these places. Then the pandemic hit. And over the pandemic, I was desperately trying to find a way to add some positivity into my life. So I started posting pretty excessively on LinkedIn about Nova Scotia and how much I love Nova Scotia. And it became this beacon where everyone from away who literally couldn't come home because it was COVID started flooding my inbox and wanted to talk about home. And so it really sparked this understanding that, yeah, there's this real connection to home, but there's also a real opportunity. There's a real power in that because it's unique to Nova Scotians that you want to stay connected to home. Not just that you want to stay connected to home, but you want to be part of the place's future. And so for me, I started to look at that and say, well, how do you capture that more officially? How do you add some structure to that? So, I wrapped up my time at the province. I did some work in the tech sector. But this idea was just sort of sitting in my head. And so off the side of my desk in April of 2023, I started recording a podcast.
Okay.
And I was having all these conversations. I might as well record them and share them with other people and let other people hear how proud these folks are, even though they're living, the away, you're away
right.
when
So Sean, I want to go back to something you said just a couple minutes ago. You said it's unique to Nova Scotia.
Yep.
Is that really unique to Nova Scotia? Because I'll tell you, when I see immigrants in Nova Scotia, I'm sure they have spirit of place where they're from.
So
is it not the same thing?
You're right. So these are called diaspora communities, and so
right.
I'd say there are very distinct diaspora communities. I think within Canada we're unique. I always say it's Atlantic Canadians more broadly. I see sort of the top of the pile in terms of passion are the Nova Scotians and the Newfoundlanders, and then right there with them are the New Brunswickers and the Islanders.
Right.
And then in Nova Scotia you go another layer. You got the Cape Bretoners. That's a whole other group within. But it's within Canada. Yeah, I'd say my wife is from Southern Ontario. If you started Global Ontarians, she wouldn't be chomping at the bit to buy a membership. It's not the same. It's not the same draw to place.
So Sean, as I think about the history of your life, I'm wondering, growing up in forestry and farming, how has that shaped your entrepreneurial life and the forming of Global Bluenosers?
I mean, it's been pretty pivotal, I'd say. I think anybody that grows up working in forestry has probably all the ingredients you need to be a good entrepreneur. Because, I mean, first of all, it's an entrepreneurial thing to begin with. It's that classic thing of understanding how important hard work is, and that effort in is results out. For me, I know that growing up in forestry, if we didn't get in the woods and get cutting in all types of weather, there was nothing to go on the truck, which meant there was no paycheck. And so that instills a deep sense of responsibility to yourself and everyone around you that's relying on you. And so it makes you as an entrepreneur, it really built into me that idea of that you have to work hard and you have to show up every single day, even if you're not feeling like you want to be able to get it done. I contribute that back to being in a forestry business and being in farming to make me who I am and to make me better as a business owner. That's
a wonderful answer. I consider myself a hard worker and sort of a work ethic, and I bring that from the fact we had a woodlot and we had a farm as well. So I appreciate you telling me about that. Now, Global Bluenosers, with that background of forestry, where do you see this opportunity going? Tell us a little bit about Global Bluenosers and as far as the opportunity and why you established it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for me, I saw a real potential within that relationship to home. So, when I look at it, I grew up in a time, and I think a lot of us grew up in a time where, there was a lot of talk about brain drain. There was a lot of focus on, we're losing people. And then when you lost them, you had to focus on how do you get them back. And Global Bluenosers was, for me, looking at what do we do in between those two goalposts.
So you're still trying to get them back?
It's the way I view it is every diaspora community is going to have people come home. There's a percentage that'll always come home. And we as an organization want to create avenues and resources to make it easier for them, but that's not our primary purpose. Our primary purpose is if you leave and you go out into the world and you get this global perspective and global insights and global connections, until that point comes that you decide whether you want to come home or not, how do we give you an opportunity to contribute that back into the ecosystem? How do you make Nova Scotia better from away? Not that you can only make it better by being here. That's the thing that I kind of joke is one of the biggest things about Global Bluenosers is sort of injecting that mindset back into the business community and into the decision maker circles here in the provinces. When you have people that have been successful on the world stage and are living in places like London and Dubai and Hong Kong, and have succeeded in business and continue to succeed in business, they have a perspective and an insight and knowledge that I didn't have until I left. And for business owners here, they might not have the access to that right now. So how do we inject that mindset of growth and success and how it's done elsewhere in the world into that? It's a big part of it. Is why I wanted to build this community was, one, to create that connection amongst themselves so they never lose that sense of home and place, so that you can be in London and still feel like you're in Nova Scotia because you've got several dozen people around you. That's really critical. But if you've got that, then also being very purposeful and like, okay, well, now how do you contribute back in a really meaningful way? Not just sort of a drive. Yeah, it's great to drive tourism, but from an economic development perspective, creating a resource that we've never had before.
So, Sean, I see Global Bluenosers as a community social enterprise. And now we have a provincial government that really wants to develop our natural resources, raise our GDP. How do you see your organization in the future fitting into the province's expectations, and where do you see your business growing from here?
Yeah, the vision for me and on our journey, we're at the point right now of really creating that solid community piece, which is the key resource to our organization. Is like if we have the community that are members, it's a resource. Where we want to go as an organization is we want to be a partner, not a replacement. We want to be a partner to the organizations within government and within industry that are activating on that plan for how do we get to the next level. And we see ourselves as sort of filling a gap, which is how do you create the resource to take the ideas here and the people here to market. So we're that connective tissue between Nova Scotia to the world. And so I always joke about it as the Global Bluenosers network is kind of like the biggest distributed sales team in the world. Is you've got all of these people ready to sell Nova Scotia, both from individual business perspective to the idea to the projects, everything from taking products to the world to identifying investment that can come into those big projects.
Oh, I like that.
It's exactly. So these are the individuals that are out there. They're positioned and ready to deliver the messaging and to do the work on our behalf because they've raised their hand that they want to. Our job as an organization is to work with partners on the ground here to equip them with the information to do that sell. So I always say, if you've got a sales team that doesn't know what they're selling, they're not very good.
So we need to get that information to you.
We need that information in the hands of the people who are positioned to then work on our behalf. So it's, I always joke is the diaspora community for Nova Scotia has always defaulted to pushing tourism, which I love. I love the tourism industry. But it's because we know that. We can talk about our communities and you should take a trip to Nova Scotia, spend a week there, go to my hometown. We know it. But if you've been away for 20 years, do you know what's happening on the ground in Nova Scotia? You're living a life in Dubai. How are you supposed to stay connected to what's happening on the ground in Nova Scotia? Our job as an organization is to work with the partners on the ground here to get that information to those individuals so they now know what is the new operating environment in Nova Scotia, what is next for Nova Scotia, and how can they help support that through their access that we don't currently have. We don't have people on the ground around the world. But we actually do. We just have to activate them.
Okay. So you're going to be expanding to other cities around the world, I'm assuming?
Absolutely. We're going to focus on being an organization for everybody, but we have some key cities that we focus on. There's clusters. We cluster in places as Nova Scotians. There's the obvious ones like Toronto and Calgary and Boston. Then there's ones like Texas that no one ever really expected. There's Dubai that people didn't expect. There's Hong Kong. There's Sydney, Australia. There's Tokyo. You throw a dart and hit one of the major economic centers in the world, you're going to find enough people to create a critical mass of global bluenosers to be a resource on the ground. And the great thing is that they're usually working part and parcel, because they're business people, in some way with federal government resources on the ground in those cities. So they already know the ambassadors. They already know the consul generals. They know the trade commissioners on the ground. They've already been positioned to work with that. Now we inject all that knowledge of, here's the big projects coming for Nova Scotia. Here are the companies that are looking to succeed in your market. Here are the investment opportunities that you should be communicating to your higher net worth individuals that you know and work with. That's our job, is to get it to them in those key cities.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you're building global new bluenosers, can you tell me some of the challenges that you faced building the organization?
Yeah, I mean, for anyone that has started a business, they will tell you it comes with probably a much longer list of challenges than anything else. The biggest thing for me has always been getting the message out about what it is, because it's very different. It's, I'm not building and selling widgets. I am focused on creating community and then really deploying that community for the benefit of our individual members in the province. It's a really hard story to tell. It's so
sounds like a fun story to tell.
It's a super fun story to tell, but I know when I first started it, people were like, "What is this?" And for me, trying to get through the doors in Nova Scotia, within the business community, within the political community, people were just like, "We don't know what you're doing." And I was like, "Well, yeah, neither do I. That's why I'm doing it, is because I'm chasing something that I know is real and I know is impactful." But
so it was an income challenge? It were tough to earn some money to do it? Or
super hard to find sort of those early adopters in terms of sponsors and supporters. I was lucky enough that I found my very first supporter in the Halifax Stanfield Airport. They were immediately the first ones that came on board and said, "Yeah, we love what you're doing." And that really injected it. But I think, and then the biggest challenge is then getting out and finding these people. My product is people. And so I have to find the people. I have to get out into the world and find those individuals and bring them into sort of the mission of what we're trying to, and make them part of this movement. And then so those were some of the big logistical problems. There's always the funding and financial side of an early stage business. That was obviously part of it. But I think for me, it's been really, the biggest challenge was refining down to be able to say exactly who it's for, why we're doing it, and what a change we're trying to affect. It's the classic messaging of what the organization is all about has been, and that's why it's taken me some time. I had to feel it. I had to go through that journey of getting on planes and going out and meeting people, because the community in London is different than the community in San Francisco. Okay. So you have to understand the place. We talk about place. We're crafted by this place that is our home. We're also crafted by the place that we end up. And so if you're a Nova Scotian in London, you're molded by London. And if you're a Nova Scotian who goes to San Francisco, you become molded by San Francisco.
Okay.
So you're balanced. I had to go out and find out, how does leaving affect people and how does it change them? And then how do you make an organization that's going to be seen as valuable to them?
So Sean, Forest Nova Scotia really is the voice of forestry overall in Nova Scotia. How can we help you achieve your goal, and how can we work together to partner, given our provincial objectives now and even federally to develop natural resources? How can we help you do that, and how can we work together?
Again, it really comes down to, for me, I see, this is a great start, but having Global Bluenosers organizationally in those conversations, so having us at the table is important. Allowing us to bring the resources of our community into your conversations at a strategic level, so letting us identify those people that come to the table with you is really important. Equipping us with that information to send to the community. Like, let us, when you're talking about what's coming next, filter that through Global Bluenosers as a organization to deploy that out into the world. Because ultimately what you're doing at the federal and the provincial levels is about reframing the narrative of Nova Scotia's role in the federation. In a lot of cases, it's we're taking a big step forward as a province to not be on the sidelines, but to be at the front of the line. And so the more that the message at the forestry level can be just put out into the world through our network of passionate Nova Scotians, the better it is.
So I can see us developing a pretty strong relationship here as we expand forestry from a Nova Scotia perspective around the world. This is one of the reasons why we wanted to have you, Sean, on our podcast. It's because there's a ton of opportunities out there, and we're on the verge of capitalizing on some of them.
Oh, absolutely. I think, look at the history of Nova Scotia. We are a people built on having to go against the odds. It's always been, I've always joked, it's like the sense of identity in Nova Scotia is kind of built on us against the world. Everyone always expects us to not do it, but we do it. And so I think that is going to formulate what comes next for us. I think now if you inject that history with a bit of swagger and a bit of confidence.
I like that, swagger.
We've succeeded against all odds, but we can do more. We can succeed at a higher level. So it's like, and you know what? We don't need to have it done in a way that's anything other than really digging deep into what makes Nova Scotians, whether it's somebody that's grown up here or someone who's chosen to make Nova Scotia their home. This place turns you into something pretty incredible. So how do we unlock that?
Yeah. I feel that in my heart. So if you're a forestry business out there, take a look at the information at the bottom of our podcast, get a hold of Sean, and maybe we can grow this into a really massive opportunity, improve our GDP, like the Premier says.
Yep.
Start having some economic benefits to some of the history we have here in Nova Scotia.
We have amazing assets. We have all the ingredients in Nova Scotia. First and foremost, we have the people. The people are the number one ingredient of this place. I always say if you took the people out of here, you'd have the land and you have the trees and you have all that, and it's great. But it's the people that make this a unique asset. And so when you combine what is, when I look at it from the forestry perspective, we have really unique features as a region. And we have a history in being excellent, stewards of our forest, because we also understand that our natural resources is part of our identity, not just as a commodity, but as part of our place.
Yep.
It's, I that's the thing I love. It's like I grew up understanding how do you manage a forest in a way that it almost feels like you didn't touch it. And that ability to go in and find the stump that my grandfather cut, but it's like around me is all these huge mature trees. It's like this is a managed forest.
Right.
So you take those unique assets, a high quality product with the people. It's all we need. We just need that little bit of maybe that's where I love maybe where the Premier is coming from, is that let's have some swagger about this. We can do this.
Yeah, we can do this.
Let's go bigger.
So just one more question here before I let you go. You've got this event in Dubai. Do you have any local events coming up that we should be aware of that maybe we can fill the place with foresters and technicians and people who work in the woods?
Well, I do have one coming up on October, 2 weeks from today, actually, October 22nd. I don't know when this one's coming out, but October 22nd, I'm having an event for sort of a unique part of Global Bluenosers called Boomerang Bluenosers. So it's individuals who have left but have come home. So we boomeranged. We went out and we came back, which I consider myself, and you are as well. So we're going to start sparking that as a little community within the province of how do we find those people that have sort of lived the Global Bluenosers experience but then come home and help connect them to each other and create a sense of – so that's my next big one here, and that'll be something happening fairly regularly.
Do you know where that is? I'm assuming it's at a pub.
It's at Good Robot on Robie Street. So people can check it out if you look at I believe it's boomerangbluenosers.eventbrite.com, and that goes to the event page. We've got about 30 people signed up for that one so far, and we got room for some more.
There's a ton of Boomerang Bluenosers.
And huge and equally an important part of the solution. Those folks that have come home bring that mindset of and that global perspective with them. Similarly to people that have chosen to come here from other places, they bring that global perspective and inject that into our ecosystem. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is how do we find all those folks that have moved home to be able to sit and share stories about where did you live and what why'd you come home, what was it like to come home, because it's a unique experience to move home. It was not at all what I expected when I moved home. So it was, I again, half the time I do this because I want to surround myself with people that I really love talking to.
Right.
And so that's what we're doing at Good Robot in 2 weeks.
Very good. Sean Meister from Global Bluenosers, thank you very much for joining us today. I really enjoyed this conversation, and hopefully it can blow up and we can turn Global Bluenosers into an economic powerhouse that'll do good for Nova Scotia.
I really appreciate you having me, Todd, and I just want to say I love that, for you, that I feel the passion you've got for this industry and for forestry, and I love what you're doing, and I'm happy to support it. And so keep going. This is a great medium for doing that. So thanks for everything you're doing for an industry that means a lot to me.
Great. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming in. If you're listening to the podcast, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. We would love for you to subscribe, like, and share it with people that maybe you know or other people in the sector. If you want to learn more about Forest Nova Scotia, the organization that I work for, you can go to forestns.ca. That's our website. You can click on there, listen to our podcast, and find out more information about forestry and the forest sector in Nova Scotia.